بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن سهلا إذا شئت آمين. Okay, so just as a review for what we went over last week, I believe it was the ending of Surah Takwir, and we did like the first half of Surah Infitar. I don't know if you guys remember, we said we'll do a page a day, and we're definitely not on schedule. Well, okay, inshallah. We'll see what happens. Okay, so the first thing that I discussed is basically the previous week, or the previous class, I had forgot to mention something pretty major, pretty important, which was the connection of taking an oath by the khunnas and the al-jawar al-kunnas wal-layli idha asas al-subhi idha tanafasa. Allah Ta'ala says that he is taking an oath by the star that recedes, it goes forward, then it comes back, and he takes an oath by the layl when it darkens, and like maghrib time, as well as when the morning time comes and it takes a breath. Tanafasa, it takes a breath, meaning the daybreak, pretty much. Now Allah Ta'ala takes an oath by these three things, pretty much: a star, the nighttime, and daytime. So what exactly is the connection between taking an oath by this the cycle of the night and day and all these things, as well as the stars, and what does that have anything to do with innahu laqawlu rasulin kareem? That what does this have to do with risala and the Quran and prophethood and these things? So we had discussed that there's at least 4 different places where Allah Ta'ala does something very similar, and let's just focus on the one here. I don't want to mention all 4 of them again, but in this case, we see that Allah Ta'ala is okay. So this ayah, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ الْجَوَارِ الْكُنَّسِ, this is referring to what we call the retrograde motion, when it seems like from our vantage point, where it seems like because we're going in the rotation around the sun, and there's other planets also in orbit that are also going in their orbits. So it may seem like from our vantage point here on Earth that some celestial bodies go in one direction, then they kind of go back and they break orbits, pretty much. It seems like they're breaking their natural cycle. So what does this have to do with the إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ? What does this have to do with prophethood? What does this have to do with the Quran? What does this have to do with the book of Allah Ta'ala? It is similar because from the vantage point of the kuffar, from the vantage point of the mushrikeen of Quraysh, from the vantage point of the people that were alive during the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it was Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam who similarly, he was in orbit, he lived amongst them, he was known as a Sadiq al-Amin, he was known as a truthful one, the honest one, and all these things. He was known as a genuinely decent person. But what happened? He faded and he receded. He was the al-Kunnas, right? That he went up the mountain to the cave of Hira, and then he came back, and when he came back, it seemed like he had completely became a different person. It seemed like he had completely switched up from that guy that we knew, or that sahib that we knew, as Allah Ta'ala says in a few verses later on, from our close companion that we knew. But what it is in reality is that he is still the same individual. It's just that the vantage point of these Quraysh, of these mushrikeen, of these idol worshippers was skewed. That's why they thought that it was him who had a problem. They thought that he was the one that broke out of orbit. Rather, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was gifted with nubuwah, and he was granted the Quran, and he was still that same individual. As again, Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونَ, and it was really the vantage point that you were looking at him from, it was your issue in reality. And I think we had already discussed the couple of qualities that Jibreel alayhi salam is described with here. ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين, that he is, of course, he himself is a noble individual who won't tamper with the message that he's been given with. ذي قوة, nor will someone be able to, shayateen or anything else kind of be able to steal that message away from him and, steal it from him, pretty much. عند ذي العرش, he himself, Jibreel alayhi salam, is near the throne of Allah Ta'ala, meaning that there's no person in between Jibreel alayhi salam and Allah Ta'ala when receiving this message. Makeen, muta'in, he's respected, he's followed, he's obeyed. Thumma amin, And the most importantly, as a messenger, as the middleman carrying this message from Allah Ta'ala to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he himself is a trustworthy individual who he himself won't tamper with the message or mess it up in any way. وَمَا صَاحِبُكُمْ بِمَجْنُونٍ. And Allah Ta'ala says that your sahib, your close companion that you have known, of course, he is not majnoon. Majnoon meaning that he has been taken possession by jinns, or as we commonly know, he's crazy, he's gone insane, like there's something wrong with him mentally. And of course, those two have a connection because of, in the past, people would think that these anyone who had like a was actually like mentally like clinically insane, he was like taken, he was possessed by jinns. So he's not like that. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ, that he has seen him, he has seen وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ, he, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, has seen the who, referring to Jibreel alayhi salam, بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ, he saw him in the clear horizon. And I shared that narration regarding how Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam actually saw the angelic form of Jibreel alayhi salam, and he filled the entire sky. He had the 600 wings and so on and so forth. وَمَا هُوَ عَلَى الْغَيْبِ بِضَنِينٍ. Danin means bakhil, that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is not bakhil when in regards to transmitting matters of the ghaib, of the unseen. That Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is not holding anything that we tell him. He's not holding any of that back from you. وَمَا هُوَ بِقَوْلِ شَيْطَانٍ الرَّجِيمٍ. Nor is it from the qawl, the word of a accursed devil. Qawl, I don't think we discussed this actually. Qawl, the difference between qawl and kalam. Did we talk about that? Maybe in the إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ. Did we? So kalam would be like we say kalamullah, and then we say like something like qala Allah, right? The kalam is something that's the actual speech of the speaker, whereas the qawl would be like the quotation of that individual, just to keep it simple. That's a difference between. So, إنه لقول رسول كريم, يعني this Rasul Kareem, this Jibreel alayhi salam, it's not his kalam, rather he is carrying the kalam of Allah Ta'ala, which makes it the qawl when it's in respect to Jibreel alayhi salam. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. Then there's this question: where are you going? فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. That, okay, after we discussed in the beginning of the surah the destruction of the cosmos, and إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انكَدَرَتْ, all these things that are going to happen, all these celestial bodies are going to be like completely destroyed and doing things that we would never imagine them to do. فَأَيْنَ تَذْهَبُونَ. That the individual should remember that these are all under the qudra of Allah Ta'ala, that these are all signs of Allah Ta'ala pointing towards the direction of the akhirah. That's where we're heading. That's where we are headed. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. All of this is just a reminder for the al-alamin, for the worlds, for the inhabitants of the worlds. لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمَ. That whosoever wills from amongst you, he may go upon the straight path. لِمَنْ شَاءَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَسْتَقِيمَ. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And you do not wish except for it that which Allah Ta'ala wishes, who is the Lord of the worlds. Any questions regarding that surah? Or maybe, another important thing, a really cool thing actually, is that actually maybe I'll okay. So in this surah we see that the theme was kind of like we discussed, فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ الْجَوَارِ الْكُنَّسِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسْعَسَ وَالصُّبْحِ إِذَا تَنَفَّسَ. That there's a kind of connection between the light and darkness, and how it's like there's an analogy there for before nubuwah and after nubuwah, before the prophethood and after prophethood, correct? Similarly, we see in the beginning of the surah, إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, when this ball of light, when that thing disappears, when these nujum, these strong, firm stars that are used for navigation, when those things go dull. What else? The jibalu, and then okay. وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ سُجِّرَتْ, when the seas are cast or set ablaze. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ, when the female child is buried, and that's like darkness, right? As opposed to in the next surah, إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْفَطَرَتْ, which we had discussed as well. I think I might have touched on this a little bit. That إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انْفَطَرَتْ, that the theme of this surah, of Surat al-Infitar, is inqilab. Inqilab. Qalb means to change. Inqilab is something to basically just do like a 180. So inqilab is the theme of the next surah, which is why a person, although they may seem similar, that okay, إذا الشمس كورت وإذا النجوم انكدرت وإذا الجبال سيرت وإذا العشار عطلت, and then you have إذا السماء انفطرت وإذا الكواكب انتثرت. They even sound very similar. That's why they get like, it's kind of confusing when you're like, when you're in maktab and you're trying to memorize 30. It's just, it's mad difficult because it's like they just sound so similar. But we see that there's a stark difference between the words that were chosen here for the second surah. إذا السماء انفطرت. Not talking about the sun anymore. Rather, we're talking about this إذا السماء انفطرت, when the sky is ripped open pretty much. And what does Allah Ta'ala say? Um, هل ترى من فطور? Same word. فطر. هل ترى من فطور? Do you see any cracks in the sky? When Allah Ta'ala is talking about, in the beginning of Surah Al-Mulk, He's talking about how firmly that Allah Ta'ala has established the sky. Now over here, He's saying that إذا السماء انفطرت. He's ripping the sky, or the sky is ripping open. Of course, the fa'il haqiqi is of course Allah Ta'ala, but He's saying that the sky is ripped open. So again, there's this theme of inqilab, of a complete 180. وَإِذَا الْكَوَاكِبُ انْتَثَرَتْ, when the stars. Now this word for kawakib also, like previously in the previous surah, وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ. Nujum, as we said, were those very, very bright stars that were used for navigation. So we see that the reason nujum is used over there is because the theme of the surah is about lightness and dark, and how that's analogous to the prophethood. وَإِذَا الْكَوَاكِبُ انْتَثَرَتْ. وَإِذَا الْكَوَاكِبُ انْتَثَرَتْ. This is talking about just all the different stars that are in the sky, and when they're like scattered about. Again, a complete inqilab, a complete 180 happening. وَإِذَا الْبِحَارُ فُجِّرَتْ, when they are set ablaze, then they burst, when they explode. And وَإِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ, when the graves are like turned topsy-turvy, when they're unearthed, when the contents of the graves are spilled out, when they're taken out. عَلِمَتْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ وَأَخَّرَتْ. Every individual shall know what he has sent forward, what he has, and what he left behind. Yani, this is a very powerful reminder we could take from this, is that we have to set our priorities correct. That we have to make sure all of our priorities are right, that we're making sure that the things that we are doing taqdeem of, that we're bringing forth, that we're bringing before others, like before other things, is those things that are actually going to matter, and those things that we're doing ta'khir of are things that, they deserve to be on the back seat. Like, of course, like we don't want to do ta'khir of our deen and do taqdeem of our dunya. This is my point. يا أيها الإنسان, subhanallah, ما غرك بربك الكريم. يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم. So we had mentioned that, there's like a quote-unquote sadness or pain in this sort of statement, of course, quote-unquote, right? That Allah Ta'ala is saying that, genuinely asking almost that, like, how if, let's say, you see someone that you really care about and you're not trying to correct them, you're not trying to scold them, you're not like, but you just genuinely ask them, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why are you like hurting yourself? Why are you doing things that aren't beneficial for you? Why are you not just, disciplining yourself? You genuinely ask someone this question and you're like feeling for them, you're more sad over their state than they are, pretty much. I'm sure you have all had that conversation with someone before. That Ya ayyuhal insan, ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. What has deceived you from your Lord? Like what enticed you so much that you decided to turn away from your master, bi rabbikal kareem. Now these are two interesting words that are used here. Bi rabbik is Rabb. When you say master, it automatically implies that there's a servant. It automatically implies that there's a slave. So Allah Ta'ala is saying that, like, how this relationship is not like, like we're just buddy or something, that I am your master and you're my slave. So look, why are you not obeying me in my command, which is your duty, which is your obligation? Al-Kareem. Is it because I'm noble? Is it because I'm so noble that, you do all these terrible things, you do all these sins, you do commit all these wrongs and these transgressions, and I don't just, you lie and it's not like I send like a, it's not like you steal and I just send a thunderbolt from the sky to just chop off your hand or something. It's not that, you say something bad and then your tongue falls out your mouth. Is it because I'm so noble that I'm allowing you to, is it that I'm so noble that I just don't send punishment right away, that you keep committing all these transgressions? الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك. Allah Ta'ala is the one who created you, and He proportioned you, and He fa'adalak, and He, again, we could translate it as, evened you out, fa'adalak. But we had said that um, there's a qaida of, I think this is the actual wording, al-isti'nas awla min takrar. Either that, or I'm just making it up in the Arabic and like basically just translating it from English. Al-isti'nas awla min takrar. Meaning, if there is a repetition, a apparent repetition, you would want to try to think of a additional benefit for the second time the statement is repeated. So for the reason that you could take more fa'idah out of it, for the reason that you could take more like tafsir out of it, as opposed to just saying, oh yeah, it's for takrar, it's for ta'keed. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you don't want to just say, okay, it's just for just to repeat just to put some emphasis on it. No, you would want to put some takrar on it. I mean, you would want to try to take out something new from it so that you can gain more fa'idah. So sawaka could be in relation to the body. Allah Ta'ala has created for us a well-proportioned body that we use for like literally everything that we fulfill all of our needs with, fa'adalak. And He also proportioned, so we can say fasawa is for the sawaka is for the zahir. We can say fa'adalak is for the batin. Allah Ta'ala gave us control over our emotions. He gave us control over an amazing mental faculty that He allows us to use. So it is actually these things, it is through the Zahir and the Batin that we're able to recognize our Rabb, which shall lead us to servitude and to submission to Him. في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك. That في أي سورة, أي used for تعجب. This أي used for تعجب. That in this, excuse me, what an amazing surah, what in amazing form did Allah Ta'ala fashion you. Sorry, what number is it? And in what a wondrous form has He willed to compose you, has He willed to fashion you. I couldn't think of another. Rakkaba, you could say fasawaka, fa'adalaka, rakkabaka. Those are all three synonymous things, but I couldn't think of a third fa'idah to take out from it. You guys have any ideas? بأي سورة الذي خلقك سواك فعدلك بأي سورة I can look into that more. I'm sure someone's taking out nukat on this and different fawaid you could take from it. Because they're all three different words, right? And although they have a very similar meaning, I'm sure you guys have heard the statement that there's no such thing as synonyms in the Arabic language. Yeah, so I'm sure this has to be someone who kind of took out the three different fawaid of the three different verbs that are being used here. Interesting. You could also, it's very interesting because it's I'm sure, because it's not like الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك فركبك, but it says في أي سورة ما شاء ركبك. What's the faida of bringing it in an entirely different sentence, even though it's very similar to the other two verbs of evening it out and proportioning it. Anyways, okay, let's all look into that. كلا بل تكذبون بالدين. كلا بمعنى حقا. That بل تكذبون بالدين, that you belie the religion, that you turn away, that you not only are you just denying it, but you actually go out of your way to make up things and to try to personally attack it. تكذب, تكذبون بالدين. And I said that, is this not the worst type of inqilab? Is this not the worst type of like 180 attitude a person could have? That not only are they denying their religion, but they're actually going out of their way to like play offense against it. You understand? وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. That over you are the guardian angels, or the lahafizin, not the guardian angels, sorry, like the ones who protect us from harm and things. Rather, these are the angels who كِرَامًا كَاتِبِينَ. The angels who, these noble angels who write down what يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ, that they know what a person does, that they write down all the things that a person does, and they're hafidin of this, meaning that they're not going to, that this what they're writing down is not going to be corrupted. And I think this is where we had stopped, somewhere around this. Yeah, somewhere around this. Anyways, إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ. Okay. Oh my gosh. 20 minutes just explaining the last thing. Sorry. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِ كِرَامِ كَاتِبِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. I think I have 12. I don't know. One sec. Sorry. So, katib, ism fa'il, gives the fa'ida of anyone. Remember, Arsalan, you laughed at it last time. I said the person who plays and the player. Okay, I mean, as long as you get the concept. Ism fa'il gives the ma'na of istimrar. Istimrar, like marra yamurru, to pass by something, right? So istimrar, like they constantly just keep going and doing this thing, doing this thing, doing this thing, until the point where they have this sifa attached to them, that this person is described as someone who does this thing. So ism fa'il. Where is that? What did I say that for? Katib. That they're constantly writing. يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. فعل is different from amal. That Allah Ta'ala didn't say يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَعْمَلُونَ, but He said يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. That He knows that the fi'l is different from amal, because amal is a sort of conscious action that a person does. That they, as opposed to like fi'l, where even things like breathing and these things like that, we're not really conscious of it, that we're not like making decisions to do these things, we're just doing them, right? Another faida of this was, what was it? Is it? Oh, actually, yeah, we see even like there's narration on the Day of Judgment. I'm sure. I can't recall like anything specific right now, but I'm sure maybe you guys are familiar with these as well. That that there's going to be people on the Day of Judgment that show up with like mountains and mountains of good deeds. But what is a lot that, and because this, why are they going to come with all these good deeds? Because the angels wrote these things down, but Allah Taala is going to kind of like just make them disappear. Why? Because these people had ill intent to do them. So those narrations kind of fall under this as well, regarding like a person getting deeds like out of nowhere, or his deeds just disappearing. It's because like although these katibin, they know they're writing down everything, they're not almost like some of these things they're not distinguishing between like the intent of what was behind them, and that is solely in the power of Allah Taala. Then Allah Taala says, well, I number 13. إن الأبرار have I do have. Oh, I guess I just remembered it wrong. Okay, inna al-abrara lafi na'im. So inna, at times, in terms of the balagha, this is like, you'll see this in like durusul balagha and things like that. It comes in the beginning that sometimes inna is used for liradd shak, to turn away any doubt that a person might have. You use inna for the emphasis. So there like in nahu, we'll just see that okay, inna used for indeed, for ta'keed, for emphasis, but rather it's actually used when you're responding to a question or like a statement of someone in which that questioner himself has doubt. So now you say inna to refute that doubt and also to assert your statement. Okay, so inna al-abarara lafi na'im, that these righteous individuals will be in the na'im. 13. Ayah number 13. That indeed in the afterlife, the virtuous shall most surely be in a delight. So now when you say so this is ism, like jumla ismiya, right? That these people are, normally when we translate jumla ismiya, we say like is, like zaydun kabirun. There's no, like obviously in Arabic there's no is over there, but you just, in English, that's how we would translate it. So this gives us a similar meaning, that these abarar are they're like submerged, they're like completely drowning in na'im, in delight, in ni'am, really. Na'im from ni'am, from ni'mah. وَإِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَحِيمٍ. And now same thing on the opposite end, that these fujjar, again, ism fa'il, to show the istimrar, that these people who are in this constant state of transgression and crossing the bounds that Allah Ta'ala has set, lafi jahim, they are in the hellfire. There was one thing that I wanted to point out. Oh, this is interesting. That the language that's used actually in these surahs is something that becoming more aware of due to our classes. So jazakumullah khairan everyone for this opportunity. Innal abarara. Al abrar, the root letters are going to be bara, right? Bir. Bir is someone like no. Okay, the bir is used for like virtue, for goodness. One of the words used for virtue and goodness. Now, do anyone know how to say a word for land besides like al ard? Very, very, very similar to bir. It's actually just one haraka away. Bar, exactly. Bar is used for land. Like barriya is used for like land animals. So bar. Ulaikum khairul bariya. Even that too is like taken for like general creatures and stuff, which would possibly include the malaika and things. Bar. So bar is what did I write? Bar means land, and land is of course more stable than bahar. But Bahr doesn't move. Land, the Bahr, the ocean, the waves, obviously, it's constantly moving and constantly changing, right? What did Allah Ta'ala describe the Bihar with in the beginning of the surah? إذا السماء انفطرت وإذا الكواكب انتثرت وإذا البحار فجرت, right? فجرت, its root letters are Fa, Jim, and Ra, which is what the kuffar are being described with here. إن الفجار لفي جحيم. That these people of this word fujirat has already been used for, talking about how the seas will be set on fire. Will they'll be exploded? From that same root, this word fujar is being used to describe how these individuals will be in the jahim. Okay, yaslawnaha yawm ad-din. In al-fujara lafi jahim, that these transgressors, these evilly wicked individuals will be in the hellfire. Yaslawnaha yawm ad-din, that they will enter into it on the day of judgment. Deen, have we discussed also? Okay, Deen, I'm just going to assume we didn't discuss it. Okay, Deen here, let's just maybe just send a screenshot too. Dana, okay, yeah. Dana Yadinu means to, and there must start being Dain. Anyone know what Dain means? Anyone study Quduri? Dain means a loan. Like you take a loan. Okay, this is simple. So now why is it yom ad-din? Ad-din is because that just like how you repay your loan in full, similarly Allah Ta'ala, His judgment will be a full recompensation for the acts that a person committed. And this is going to be relevant inshallah in the next surah as well, because it ties into like the whole theme of being honest in business transactions, inshallah. But anyways, yaslawnaha yawm ad-din, that they will enter it on the day of judgment. This again, the whole kalla bal tukadhibuna bid-din, and then yaslawnaha yawm ad-din. That if you want to make sure that your yawm ad-din is fine, you have to make sure that you're taking care of the deen in the dunya. وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ, and they will not be number 16. And never will they be able to be absent from it. وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ, they will never be able to basically turn away from Jahannam. That there is not going to be like we said, إِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَحِيمٍ, just like they're drowning in this Jahim, just like how the abrar, the righteous, are drowning in the ni'mas and the blessings of Allah Ta'ala. Similarly, these fujjar will be like drowning in this Jahannam. They won't even have a moment's even a moment's worth to be away from the fire of Jahannam. There's something. وما هم عنها بغائبين وليسوا بغائبين عن جهنم بعيدين عنها لا يرونها بل هي أمامهم يصلون ويذوقون سعيرها ولا يخرجون منها أبدا. That they will never be absent from the fire of Jahannam. They'll never be away from it, or like it won't even be pushed away from them even a little bit. They'll never not be able to look at it. Yani. So even in the grave, like there's a punishment, there's adhab al-qabr that we discussed previously in Surah Nazi'at, I think, that even then they won't even be able to avoid it. You may think that like there's a window open in the, we say that there's a window open from Jannah into the graves of the righteous and stuff, and they'll be able to just it's not like who's going to look away from that window. It's more like they're just reality. They're like completely submersed in these blessings that Allah Taala is granting them. Similarly, the people in the grave won't be able to turn away from it. Bal hiya is complete. It's in front of them. They will eventually enter into it, and they'll taste its punishment, and they will never be able to leave it. وما أدراك ما يوم الدين ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين تعظيم له وتهوين أي ما أعلمك ما هو يوم الدين وأي شيء هو في شدته وهوله ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين. Okay, so again, what will make you realize what is the day of judgment? ثم ما أدراك ما يوم الدين. So remember how I said that التأسيس أولى من التكرار. So I have like why is it وما أدراك ما يوم الدين and then repeat it again. You're not gonna believe this, but I wrote تأكيد underneath in my ترجمة notes. Yeah, I couldn't. Even over here, Sheikh Sabuni says, كرر ذكره تعظيما لشأنه وتهوينا لأمره كقوله الحاقة ما الحاقة وما أدراك ما الحاقة كأنه يقول إن يوم الجزاء من شدته بحيث لا يدري أحد مقدار هوله وعظمته وهو فوق الوصف والبيان. So here's here's a instead of saying it's for ta'kid, this is the fa'ida possibly that when you like are when you're for example like with one of my kids in my hifz class, I'm just like I might repeat something to show them the severity of their actions. It's not just to repeat for takrar, right? It's to show that there is a really something that they did that was really really wrong. That's why I'm like getting all up in their face about it, and that's why I'm repeating it twice. It's not just for ta'kid or for emphasis, but it's to show the severity of the crime that they committed. Of course, to a hifz kid, it's like it's going to be the end of the world if I do that. يوم لا تملك نفس لنفس شيئا والأمر يومئذ لله. On a day that no individual will, it is a day when one soul holds no power for another soul in anything. شيئا, not even in the smallest detail. والأمر يومئذ لله. Rather, the command on that day is for Allah Ta'ala alone. But this also doesn't mean that that there's not going to be shafa'ah on the day of judgment, as we know, as Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be performing it, and other individuals who are granted that honor by Allah Ta'ala, because those things too fall underneath the will, the amr of Allah Ta'ala, if that makes sense. So this doesn't like refute any of those ayat or ahadith about shafa'ah. Any questions regarding this surah? Where does time go, dude? That was like 5 lines. It's already been another 20 minutes, I think. Like 15 minutes, something like that. I don't know. Okay, anyways. Actually, I guess it's good if we're getting... Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Surat al-Mutaffifin, also known as Surat al-Tatafif. On the scale of taf'il. Tatafif. Ta-ta-fa-ya-fa. Makkiyah. So some say that the beginning might be Madani. However, actually both work. But we could just say that most of it, or possibly all of it, is just Makki surahs. So the reason I'm mentioning that is because that there's a narration regarding the... Let me just pull it up and read it to you. So according to Sayyidina Abdullah bin Mas'ud, Surah At-Tatfif, Surah Al-Mutaffifin, was revealed in Makkah. Therefore, most of the copies of the Quran refer to it as a Makki surah. Even my Quran tarjuma has Makki on top. According to Sayyidina Ibn Abbas, Qatada, Muqatil, and Dhahak radiyallahu ta'ala anhum, it is a Madani surah, but only about 8 verses are Makki. Imam Nasa'i transmits a narration from Ibn Abbas that when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he arrived to Medina, the people of Medina whose most transactions were based on measurements used to cheat and short measure. For this reason, Allah Ta'ala revealed this surah, that these people basically, they had their scales. What they would do is that they would, if they were someone was taking, like, they were the customer, then they would make sure that no one's tampering with the scale or anything. But if they were the seller, then they would try to maybe cut corners a little bit, try to give an individual like an ounce or two less than what they deserved, or even go as far as to actually tamper it with the scale itself. For this reason, Allah Ta'ala revealed the surah. It is reported from Sayyidina Ibn Abbas that this is the first surah that was revealed as soon as the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam arrived at Medina. The reason is that it was a common practice in Medina that the people used to be very strict in measuring when they had to receive something from others, like Yani when they were the customer, but when they were selling something, they used to cheat the buyers. So after the revelation of the surah, all of them abandoned this bad custom totally and made them themselves in a way that they were now well known in their honesty in weighing and measuring. It can also be referring to the people of Mecca as well, because of their, they were also like a people of business and commerce that this could apply to as well. Although Mufti Shafi says that this is narrated, or this might be just like from the footnotes of Mufti Taqi, that this is reported by Hakim, Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah with sound chain of narrators. So it could be referring to both. It's not a big deal. Anyways, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ الذين إذا اكتالوا على الناس يستوفون. That's whale. Actually, any volunteers to translate, or should I just go for it?
Is that like woe?
Yeah, whoa. Like it's almost, it's like in the class of bitsa, where you're almost cursing at someone, almost like calling for lana on them, almost it's like a state of like expressing an extreme difficulty and struggle, where you're just saying like, oh, yeah, waylata laytani lam attakhidh fulanan khalila, where the person on the day of judgment, he's gonna say, just like, what in a pitiful state am I that I took such and such individual who was a bad person as a friend when I really shouldn't have. And now I see it on the day of judgment, I'm just in a state of loss. So it's used for that. Bitsa also is used in this way of calling for like of it's not a good wasf, pretty much. So the surah that opens with a dire divine warning of a debasing punishment awaiting the hereafter for those who practice cheating as a norm in commerce and whom it calls the defrauders, because they insist on receiving a full amount in return for the partial measure that they themselves give. So وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ وَيْلٌ لِلْمُطَفِّفِينَ إِدْغَامُ وَتَغُنَّ. That's woe to the defrauders. Tatufif, we're going to be talking about it in the next two ayahs, so just hold on for a minute. الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. Those who, الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا, when they take measure from people, عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. Yani when they're the customer, they want to make sure that they are receiving a full product, I guess. Okay? That they're receiving it in full. That they يَسْتَوْفُونَ, they seek to receive it in full. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ يُخْسِرُونَ. And when وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ, so kale is used for volume, products that are weighed by volume. Or وَزَنُوهُم, wazan is used for mass. يُخْسِرُونَ, that they're stingy with it. That when they وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُم يُخْسِرُونَ, when they give a measure to them, or they're giving a weight in trade to them, they diminish it. They try to cut the corners and be a little bit lax, and giving the seller just like maybe 99% of what he paid for. Interestingly, here is we have anyone notice anything? I don't want to say weird, but strange or not normal about the sentence construction of this ayah. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ وَزَنُوهُمْ. Normally, in a situation like this, there would be a harf used as a sila. وَإِذَا كَالُوا لَهُمْ, when they weigh for them. It's not like they're weighing them, right? Obviously. Or وَزَنُوا لَهُمْ, when they weigh for them, whether it be volume or mass, then they diminish in the weight, and they try to cut that corner, right? Over here we see that the lam is removed. وَإِذَا كَالُوهُمْ instead of كَالُوا لَهُمْ, showing that Allah Ta'ala is showing that just like Allah Ta'ala is removing this letter of lam, which will normally be used to show that even like this business, this transaction is deficient. By taking out that harf, that it's showing that the transaction between these two individuals is deficient. ألا يظن أولئك G.
Is the home, the Lamir there, is it not referring to that which is being weighed?
Is it not referring to that which is being weighed? وإذا كانوا الذين إذا اكتالوا على الناس يستوون. No, because then what would the damir be going back to? It needs the marja, right? It needs that thing that was previously mentioned.
Yeah.
So it would be. And why are you smiling so much?
I don't remember what that is.
You don't know the marja? Okay, basically, it's like, okay, I go up to you and I haven't seen you. Or I go up to a random person I haven't seen them in weeks, and I say, like, Huwa Asad. Who's this Huwa? Who are we talking about? What is this? What's this damir going back to? I would need to go up to him and be like, man, Mufti Aziz, man, this man is just going off on his Tuesday tafsir. Huwa Asad. Now that Huwa is referring obviously now to the marja, the raja'a is going back to Mufti Aziz.
Okay.
Whereas it doesn't seem like وَإِذَا كَالُوا لِلنَّاسِ أَوْ وَزَنُوا لَهُم. This is what Sheikh Sabuni is saying. It's like الَّذِينَ إِذَا اكْتَالُوا عَلَى النَّاسِ يَسْتَوْفُونَ. So the damir, the hum, would refer back to what was previously mentioned, على الناس, the people.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. What? ألا يظن أولئك أنهم مبعوثون. Okay, so two things. One thing I'll mention, the other thing I'll leave up to you guys. ألا يظن أولئك subhanallah لزيادة التشنيع. That Allah Ta'ala he's using the third person. يظن أولئك, that those people. He's not even like directly talking to them. Allah Ta'ala is so disgusted by this act of tatfif that he's not even directly addressing these people. There's such a disgust and such a repugnance in this act and its impermissibility that Allah Ta'ala is referring to. يَظُنُّ أُولَٰئِكَ أَنَّهُمْ مَبْعُوثُونَ. He keeps referring to them as them, those people, those guys. Allah Ta'ala is not even taking them directly. Okay, the question for you guys was, what does this have to do with the first three ayahs? And don't say, oh, okay, they're going to be taken to judgment on their evil deeds. You know?
I'm not sure if it's right, but I remember when we talked about Ba'ath in the previous surah, وَإِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ, that Ba'ath was like you're emptying like everything, every single thing, which I guess I was thinking was in contrast with, like, in this case, وَإِذَا كَالُوا وَزَنُوا يُخْسِرُونَ, that they don't like.
This word, وَإِذَا الْقُبُورُ بُعْثِرَتْ, what are the root letters of بُعْثِرَتْ?
Ba'ath.
Ba'atha. Well, what about that ra? Where does that ra come in from?
Never mind.
See, the bu'thirat is from the very, I'm sure you guys probably did this in sarf, and someone might have told you that this thing is never going to come up in your entire, in nahu or sarf or anything, but ba'thara is ruba'i. We have thulathi mujarrad, this is ruba'i. Ba'thara, 4 letters. Actually, there is one thing, there's one thing that I learned in my first year. It's called musnad ilay. You guys familiar with this? Okay. I promise you, this never came up in my alam course. And I told a kid this, literally in my 7th year. I'm telling a kid this. Like, if you don't get it, it's okay. It's never gonna come up. The next week, in the Hashia, we're reading, like in a random Hashia in Bukhari, you're reading Mufti Saab, and he's like, and he tells someone, he reads the Hashia, he's like, okay, this is confusing. I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to read it over and work it out. I'm like, I don't know what a Muslim is, man. I never bothered to learn it. That's exactly what the whole class was about right there. So that came back to bite me. Even like there's some silly stuff like the okay, never mind, I'm not gonna dig myself in a deeper hole. That these people that, okay, first of all, you guys are cheating the weight on the in your business deals, and you guys are trying to um, take more than you're allowed to, and you're trying to give less than you're supposed to. All these things that this is a direct reflection to your akhirah. That you guys will not be able to do this on the day of judgment, on the mizan, on the scales of deeds in the hereafter. This is not something that you guys are able to do, as reflected in the previous surah. Kiraman katibin ya'lamuna ma taf'alun. These are the noble angels who their writing is not going to be corrupted, and which we'll discuss in a little bit as well. Talking about the inna kitab al-fujjar fi sajin ma adraka ma sajin kitabun marqum. Okay, so this is there's some more to it, but got like 10 minutes left, so I didn't even. Anyways, is okay. Another thing is where'd it go? This is Mufti Shafi's edition, inshallah. Just give me one sec. Tatfif has a like we said. So directly, what this tatfif is basically one of its definitions that's being given here is what people kind of are not kind of people are cheating. People are making sure they get what they deserve, and they're being stingy when it comes to dishing out. Correct. However, Mufti Shafi says something very beautiful, which is very relevant to us because we're probably thinking like, okay, I mean, I don't deal with. It's not like I'm selling rice on the daily or something. So he says, Tatfif has a wider scope. The Quran and Sunnah have prohibited Tatfif. And what is it? The the main the main issue here? It's that you are it signifies giving short measure and weights because generally all transactions are carried out by things that can be measured or weighed. But the basic purpose of weighing or measuring is none else but to give a person what they deserve. That's the main issue. That Allah Ta'ala is saying that you guys are not giving what other people deserve. So now, is this only restricted to إِذَا كَالُوهُمْ أَوْ وَزَنُوهُمْ? No, of course not. This could be in literally all facets of life, as we'll see here. It therefore indicates that the rule is not restricted to weights and measurements only, but it includes all other means through which the rights of someone else are evaluated, assessed, or appraised. Meaning, it is obligatory that all rights are given to the deserving persons in full, whether they are assessed by weight, measure, number, or any other means. In terms of this concept of tatfif, it is prohibited to give to any person less than his due. So it's not just talking about the business place. It could be in any and all transactions. Like if a person says, I'll work for this many hours, and then you can get the job done in like 20% of that time. I hear this happens a lot with IT guys. Like they can do all their work in a day, and then Tuesday to Friday, they just go up to work and just chill, right? That is, that's also a form of talfif, or it could be. Okay, I don't want to just give a blanket statement out there for anyone. So it is recorded in the Muwatta of Imam Malik that Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anh, he saw a person, he was very quickly praying his salah. So what did he say? لَقَدْ طَفَّفْتَ, that you have committed tatfif. Yani you're what are you doing? Now you're shortening, you're like decreasing in the right that Allah Ta'ala has on you even. So it's not just restricted to the marketplace at all. He's saying that Umar radiallahu anh, the second Khalifa, is saying that you're doing tatfif with Allah now. That in your salah, you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be trying to pray so fast, trying to be praying so quickly. So now, having cited the statement, Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab, Imam Malik, he then takes out this principle of what we're talking about. لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَفَاء وَتَطْفِيف. Every single thing has its full due, wafa, like jaza and wifaqa. That's not even the same word, but same meaning. Wafa, full due. وَتَطْفِيف, and where you're being short in your measure. So this postulate can apply even to prayers, ablution, cleanliness, and all the rights of Allah Ta'ala, and additionally, of course, to the rights of people, as we see here. That if someone is deficient in fulfilling these rights of Allah, he is guilty of tafif. Similarly, if one cuts short human rights by failing to perform duties imposed upon him or keeping to the terms of the agreement duly, he is covered by the rule laid down by the verse regarding tafif. So, for example, is the same example I gave about a person says that they'll work for a set number of hours, and then they try to, they try to just clock out like 2 minutes early, or things like they just leave without, telling anyone, and they make sure they get paid for a full day. These are all forms of tatfif. Generally, people, even scholars, are lax in this matter. They do not regard curtailment of their obligations relating to service or labor as a sin. Rather, what do we think? We think that Yeah, I definitely got that guy. May Allah Ta'ala protect us from this act of tatfif. One more thing. Okay, we're not getting that much further into surah, so might as well. That this was the act that the Qawm of Shu'aib alayhi salam was destroyed for. That these were the people that were like the worst types of capitalists. They would just try to outdo everyone else. This type of tatfif is for like hourly pay. Um, hmm. I guess I don't want to give like a blanket statement either. If like it's normal and your boss is cool with it, or there's a lot of factors, of course, as well. So and I'm definitely not trying to like pass a fatwa or anything on this right now as well. But like there's a lot of factors into it. A certain task and finish it early. No, I don't think you fulfilling your task early would be sort of taqfif, but taking advantage of someone that would, although that might not even be taqfif, but that too would still be wrong. I'm sure we could agree on that. Is there any like common scenario that this might take? Like I said, like the IT situation, like a person they're able to finish their job in like real quick. So and then they don't turn it into like the due date. That might be a sort of that could possibly be a sort of tawfiq maybe. Again, I think it'd be best to ask particular scenarios to a mufti, inshallah.
Is this like clocking in early and clocking out like later than or whatever?
Like straight up lying about it? Yeah, I'm sure. I don't know. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. I know like some guys what they do is they just tell their buddy to clock in for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, come on now. Um, would it be sinful? Inshallah, I'll get back to you on this, inshallah. There's also a qaida of something being ma'roof that that is just widely known, and although it may not even be discussed, it's just expected. It's in the back of everyone's minds. That could also play a role into this. Inshallah, I'll just ask some of my staff at DS tomorrow, and I could let you know. Inshallah, this is actually something that we had discussed earlier this year. That I think with one of our teachers, and he said that I want to make sure I ask Mufti about this. Okay, for sure, no problem. Inshallah. Okay. Okay, let me just share one last narration of Abdullah bin Abbas. He says that he heard Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say that khamsun bi khamsin, that there are five sins in which there will be five punishments for. The first being that someone who breaks. So this is on page 7. I don't want you guys to like bust your hand while you're trying to write this down. It's page 729. I saw Arsalan. He was like smash that paper on him. Dash his pen on that paper. It's page 729 of Ma'riful Quran, volume 8, inshallah. 729. Okay, so the first sin is someone who breaks his covenant. Allah Ta'ala will cause his enemy to subdue him. Breaks his covenant, Allah Ta'ala will cause his enemy to subdue him. Yani, a person tries to, like a politician or um, like a leader of a nation, if he's not being even with whoever he's dealing with, if he's not being honest and he's not abiding by the pacts that he himself is instituting, and he goes against them and he betrays them, really, then eventually he'll be overthrown. So there's like a back and forth, really, you can see there. Number two, the nation that abandons the sacred laws of Allah Ta'ala and decides cases according to other parties, then poverty will prevail commonly amongst them. Okay, this is a whole class of, I don't know if you guys have heard of like the literature regarding like Asrar al-Sharia. I don't want to say it's like a branch of Tasawwuf, but it might be. That these people, particularly there's like three big names in this, is Ghazali, Shatibi, and Shawliullah. Imam Ghazali, Imam Shatibi, and Shawliullah. What they did was like absolutely beautiful, artistic, poetic, like the almost like you could say like the height of scholarship, if I dare say so, is that these individuals like they take the entire Sharia, like everything, the usul, the furu, the big masail, the chote masail that you would never think about, and they paint the picture of why it's just so harmonious. And it's so beautiful because obviously these are three individuals with three completely different thoughts. Not completely different. Of course, it's all in Sunni, Ashari slash Maturidi, or one of the four madhabs, that type of stuff. Like it's all, but it's like it's obviously not the same as well. They're not like carbon copies of each other. So there's other individuals who, um, although they might not be like as famous, nor are they like is it like at this grand of a scale. But you even have like some of our teachers who are at this level. I heard Mufti Ma Yusuf. He mentioned that Mufti Muhammad Ali, his teacher in South Africa, alhamdulillah, had a chance to meet, is like this. Mufti Saeed Ahmad Palanpuri, you could clearly see in his works and in his teachings. Who else did you mention? Yeah, like you need someone like of course like Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi, like these really great huge Deobandi ulama, Qasim Nanotwi and all these others. Like they had the entire, like it's ridiculous to think, but they had like not just the major branches of Sharia in mind, but like even all the small ahadith of regarding certain little topics that we deem as small, but they understood how it fits so harmoniously into the tree of Sharia. Anyways, so so like that one thing that I just said, the person who breaks his covenant, then the enemy will subdue him. A person could be like, what does that have to do with? What does it have to do with each other, right? So I tried to just provide maybe a small hikmah, a possibility, possible. Of course, it's not like anything that's like qat'i or definitive, but just a small possible hikmah as to what's the connection between the two. But then, what does a nation have? It's 9:01, so let me wrap it up quick. What is a nation having to that basically passes laws that aren't in line with the sacred laws of Allah Ta'ala? How does that lead to poverty? How does that lead to poverty? Sorry. So those are things that someone like Ghazali, Imam Shah Waliullah, these guys will kind of talk about like the all like the usul behind it and how it makes like perfect sense that these things are connected. The nation amongst whom zina is and fornication and adultery becomes rampant. This is the third thing. The nation whose zina is rampant amongst, Allah Ta'ala will punish them with epidemics and diseases, as we have witnessed. I don't think we've ever seen a more promiscuous and like lewd age ever than our times that we're living in. Maybe I'm wrong. Number four is those who do this tatfif in measures and weights, then Allah Ta'ala will cause famine to break out amongst them. And number five is those who fail to pay their zakat, Allah Ta'ala will withhold rain from them. So now there's different variations to this narration, and of course, like I said, the connection between these five things. I could try to see if this narration has been discussed anywhere um, in detail. Inshallah, maybe I can get back to you guys with this. Inshallah. Okay, so let's just stop there. I don't. It's already 9:03. I'm sorry for going over time. Anything? Okay, so and okay, we did like literally half a page today. We had like the last couple lines of Infitar, and we did like four ayahs of Mutaffifin. But inshallah, there's khair in it. I hope there's benefits. And we ask that Allah Taala not allow us to be any people who do tatfif, and that He makes us from the al-abrar, inna al-abrar lafi na'im. We ask Allah Ta'ala make us from these individuals. Ameen. If there's any questions, feel free. If not, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Sorry, Wa alaikum assalam.